ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, back with the latest of Hannibal. We are on Season 3, Episode 3, Secondo, if that's how you pronounce it. So, spoiler alert, as we shall be diving into the mad thick of things. Lots of spoilers shall abound from here on out. So, just in case you guys are picking up on my Hannibal reviews for the very first time, by the way, you can find a link to the playlist containing all of the rest of my Hannibal talks. I would love to see your comments there, and if I do get the chance, reply to them. It has been many a moon since I've been able to keep up with that, and it makes me sad inside, because, you know, if I'm not replying to you guys, what more am I than a mad woman talking into a camera lens? And well, I guess if that is who I am at the moment, then so be it. But let's open up this can of worms, or snails, shall we say. So I must begin this by saying that for some reason or another, and perhaps this speaks to the level of insanity that Hannibal has taken me to, but I feel like this was actually a somewhat more grounded episode than even the second one, which showed, of course, Will Graham conjuring Abigail Hobbs up in his mind back from the dead, which we know and found out she was not in real life. However, now, I am going to address at the very end of this vlog the preview for next week, which I couldn't help but see because they tagged it right onto the very end of the episode, and so I know that some people are actually very upset at the spoilers that were contained in those previews, but I'm not going to speak of them till the end here. So, I will keep your little minds innocent if you were able to dash away quickly, but this particular week, while we do kind of delve into a new world of madness, it's not even quite as cerebral. We get lots of fun visual fancy and grotesqueries as always, but I could actually really track what was going on, and I think that maybe part of that is due to the fact that we are watching Will Graham as he encircles Hannibal and takes a brand new approach to finding his beloved friend, frenemy, nemesis, and, you know, all of the things that Hannibal is to Will, and all of those undefined connections. But, so we see him exploring Hannibal's past and going to a home to which Hannibal supposedly cannot return because of too many bad memories. Whatever that means. Well, you can do the math. But there, Will Graham encounters Chiyo. Now, I barely caught her name, and I feel like I'm going to end up pronouncing it incorrectly, and you guys are going to hate me a little bit, but Chiyo, I want to say it's Chiyo, perhaps. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong. I'm going to look at this later and be sad. But anyways, so she apparently has been keeping watch at Hannibal's castle in the woods due to the fact that she does not want to become what Hannibal is curious to see if she will. It is very much resistant to killing this imprisoned man whom Hannibal says was the perpetrator who transgressed against his sister, Misha. And we know that that is not exactly true, and that this is yet another machination that Hannibal has set up in his great and overarching scheme of doing what the crap ever he wants to, his favorite hobby of all time being making as many people as he can kill people, because why not? Because he can. But yeah, so all of this is outside of Chiyo's awareness. And so here she is, this prisoner in a great, fierce, almost haunted kind of palace. It reminds me very much of a dark, gothic, romantic horror almost. In fact, I think the setting of the manor looks a little bit like the video game Amnesia: The Dark Descent. At least that's what I thought when Hannibal first went inside. There was something that was so magical and brooding and haunting and lovely about this episode that I was really able to sink my teeth into. I mean, just the sheer setting was so surreal, and I love the way that this particular setting was introduced to us, with Will, of course, communing with Hannibal in the woods, and then that kind of fades into his old home back in the northeast U.S. of A. And all these things are kind of bleeding together as Will is trying to find his way through Hannibal through the palace of Hannibal's mind, and there finds a prisoner whom he seeks to set free. But in so doing, actually kind of becomes a little bit of Hannibal himself, as we see that I'm starting to confuse the two now. That's not good. But as we see that Will, in attempting to free Chiyo from her burden, from her imprisonment, to tending this prisoner whom she refuses to kill, he sets him free, such that he returns to attack Chiyo and forces her to actually finally kill. That is the same kind of shenanigans that are going on at the Casa de Bedelia and Hannibal, where he surprises a dinner guest with a cocktail mixer mabob in the skull, just in the perfect place to send the man into a little bit of a Joker-style madness, which, in putting an end to it, Bedelia realizes that, whoops, she's the one who offed the guy, and that is precisely what Hannibal wanted, and what he always seems to get. So it's kind of crazy to see how Hannibal and Will are running parallel to one another in this respect, and as Chiyo says at the very end, he'd be proud of you, which I'm not saying he wouldn't be, but in a separate sphere, we see Hannibal come to the realization that the only way that he can forgive Will for his betrayal of him back in season 2 is to eat the guy. Yep, that is the conclusion that he comes to. Why forgive and forget when you can forgive and feast, is what I say. Or, well, I hope that I won't be saying that, but I can think of somebody who does. So that is, well, it would be a bigger twist, I think, if it hadn't been spoiled in some of the earlier teaser trailers for the season, because they contained that juicy bit of dialogue way, way, way back in the day, long before the season aired, so I kind of let the cat out of the bag on that one, and that seems to kind of be the general trend of things with NBC and the way that they market and show their previews is a little bit too revealing, but it's crazy to see how Will and Hannibal are both kind of doing the same things now and are really starting to become equals in so many frightening ways. And in fact, Will even sets up this elaborate death tableau for the prisoner after Chiyo finally kills him. And if I'm not mistaken, it seems like a bit of an homage to Silence of the Lambs, if you guys are thinking of the same thing that I am, with kind of that iconic art. That, for some reason, that really rang a Silence of the Lambs bell for me. And what I especially love about this episode is the way that it fuses together all the different forms of Hannibal universe literature and films, and what Brian Fuller is doing here, essentially, in touching on the story about Misha, is adding to the horror of Hannibal, suggesting that, yes, maybe this horrible atrocity did occur in Hannibal's past, but it does not quantify or qualify who exactly Hannibal truly is. And it's that transcendent, fierce, godlike quality that sets Hannibal apart from so many other villains that we encounter in different forms of media. He's not just a man born from tragedy. He is not a man shaped by tragedy, but one who responded to tragedy and was always completely and utterly in control, just as Bedelia was trying to assert that she was earlier on in the season. So that's a very interesting and I think necessary approach to take, especially for Mads Mikkelsen's version of Hannibal Lecter. I love the fact that for as much as we discover about Hannibal, there is so much that I think we'll never be able to truly touch. We only ever see him responding in kind of just on the periphery, building his mind palace and whatever rooms he so desires, whoever he wants to put in them and where and doing what and eating whom. This is all the dollhouse design of Hannibal Lecter. So that was a particularly cool aspect of this week's episode, is that getting to finally see Will and Hannibal running parallel again, whereas the first episode focused more exclusively on Hannibal and what he's been doing with Bedelia, and then we switch more on what Will is doing in his pursuit of Hannibal, and now we see where both of them are at simultaneously, the different conclusions they're coming to, the different company that they are keeping. And, you know, how exactly is this going to go down as Hannibal is purportedly drawing everyone to himself on the other side of the world? It's quite crazy to witness and is getting me very excited for whatever else we're going to see in the rest of the season. Finally, that drama is ramping up, and while we do still get some weird kind of psychological play that's going on, this episode was just linear enough for us to grasp the trajectory of things and to still be in awe of the incredible and terrifying irony of what Will Graham has wrought in educating Chiyo about who exactly Hannibal truly is, without being able to say who Hannibal truly is, but that he is undefinable, and that the sad story that Hannibal spun for her, like a beguiling spider spinning a web of, you know, he may be drawing from truthful events, but it does not indicate the truth of who he is, and that is a very scary thing, and it's something that Will Graham, of all people, understands, and in understanding that, he really knows how to emulate the master manipulator. And yet we want to trust Will Graham more, and we want to trust that he can be saved, and that ultimately everything he is doing in sort of becoming Hannibal is to beat Hannibal. Not to, you know, if you can't beat him, join him. He's gonna join him and beat him. Is kind of the way that I see things. So now, of course, we need to address the elephant in the room that is a certain resurrected man, Jack Crawford. So I'm definitely having my expectations turned on their head, because I was pretty dang sure that Hannibal was so wounded by what Will did in the past season that he would take everybody out, everybody in the posse, bye-bye, and focus on making Will alone pine for him. But we're starting to see that other bodies are surfacing, and these bodies still have heartbeats and blood in their veins, and, well, a couple of them have made their way over to Italy. So we see that Jack actually meets up with Inspector Pazzi, I believe his name is, and they're having a little talk about to going after the monster himself and redeeming themselves in their careers and professional lives, and really enjoying the prestige that they have gained in their respective institutions by finally taking Hannibal down after all these years. But it's not that simple for Jack. No, it's a very different kind of mission entirely, and I think represents a road to redemption for this character. He's not going after Hannibal, but is in fact going after Will Graham, which at this point is basically going after Hannibal, because they're kind of two peas in a sadistic pod. But that's besides the point. Or is it? Anyway, we see that Jack, now that he has regained consciousness and life, evidently, he is hoping to atone for what he has done in borrowing Will's imagination. Imagination, you know, it's a dangerous thing. And putting one's imagination where it should not be can send him on a bit of a warpath. And I think finally Jack sees that at last. And he is out to save Will at whatever the cost. I mean, screw frickin' Hannibal. Will Graham is that last drop of humanity that he's got. And with both of them going into the grave and coming back out, I think the last thing that Jack Crawford wants is to see Will go down once more, and to do so willingly, like a sheep to the slaughter, essentially. So it's cool to have Jack back, for sure. Definitely didn't see that coming. I mean, I really need to have more faith in Hannibal's almost murder skills. He sure knows how to put on a show. And I mean, he has everybody in the circus doing their own stunts, if you know what I'm saying. So the bodies hit the floor, but they are coming back up one by one. And these zombies aren't happy, though. They are, they're not content to simply go after brains, but they are going to pick the unknowable brain of the circus master himself. So this is all very exciting developments. And now I think I am going to, at this point, address the preview for next week, because I kind of can't help it. So, I don't know if this is going to be the end of the vlog, but if you really don't want to know anything about next week's preview, then I would suggest dipping out now. Maybe leave a comment below. Whatever you would like to do that does not involve those spoilery things. But here we go. Here we go. So, of course, Will and Jack are not the only ones who are back, but apparently everybody. A reunion of the not dead is what things are looking like. And even, you know, I was afraid that they were going to really just mess with and toy with our expectations about who's really back and who's not. They only did that just a little bit with Abigail. It appears, based on what we see in that little 30-second snippet, that pretty much everybody is back, with varying forms and degrees of flesh wounds. Some of our boys are not looking so pretty, but it appears that everybody is kind of converging together on one particular point. And I'm nervous and excited and scared. I mean, I had no idea that they were going to be bringing the full cast back in such a colorful and visceral and just truly unbelievable way. I mean, do you guys think that everybody that we peeped at in the trailer is actually coming back? I mean, do you think that's plausible? I'm trying to remember all of the unfortunate events that everybody befell last season, and it's a little bit difficult to actually remember because there was just so many horrible things. How can my mind choose? I've got my own mind palace going on up here, but I locked most of the doors and threw away the key because it's a little bit too much to handle. At least we didn't have any Stagensteins this week, so we've got to count those blessings when we can. But yeah, so it appears that Hannibal really is drawing everybody to his dinner plate. He is ringing the bell. He is offing people in very creative ways, quite shamelessly so, and compelling Bedelia even to do the same. But that does not come without Bedelia getting a little ounce of revenge, in that I think for the very first time we see a flicker of fear across his eyes when she says that this is the beginning of the end. And he could truly be caught by all of this. And then ultimately the big clincher, of course, is with a rather intimate bubble bath scene. She takes the opportunity to ask him how his sister tasted. Which sounds like a very much kind of your mom, but incest style joke almost, except knowing the context, it is nonetheless a huge bird. And after that, she, instead of a mic drop, she just submerges below the water, which is just such a beautiful I'm out moment. Like, I'm gonna go drown now. I've said everything I need to say. But of course, with her head quite literally and physically in Hannibal's hands, asking such a question, well, is for whatever truly happens in Hannibal's past, nature, nurture, born, or born into a new life. The Misha scenario definitely strikes a chord for him, and Bedelia is not afraid to pluck those strings. I mean, if she's gonna be here in the midst of the monster, she's gotta have her moments too, So talk about a power couple dynamic going on there. I'm also very excited to see the dynamic that unfolds between Chiyo, whatever her name may be, and Will. And I really like the way that her character was introduced in the different stages of grief and enlightenment that she passes through in this episode alone. And now she is going into the dark with Will and has no choice but to lead him to the one and only, who he doesn't know is waiting to dine upon the one who betrayed him. Definitely takes me back to that Judas imagery from the first episode of the season 2. This is what Will Graham gets, no matter how beloved he may be the one to forgive, but it's just not a fascinating love story if they are both so quick to reconcile and in such a classic way. It's just not gonna happen. These boys have their own flair for things, and boy, were they made for each other. So thank you guys so much for watching my review of the episode. Of course, if there's anything major that I happen to miss, I would love for you to fill in the blanks below and to jumpstart my brain. And we'll have some talks down yonder. But yeah, so we're setting the stage for some very interesting events, and I think that this really is shaping up to be what might be my favorite season of all time. The way that the story is continuously stepping up, and the use of visuals, the bizarrety, and just the provocative, everything is so engrossing. I am ever in love. I am ever in love, and I hope that you are too. So, all that being said, all the cards out on the table. As always, I shall be back before you know it.
I see you slither away with your skin and your tail.